Gang, welcome back to 31 Days of Halloween. Today is day number 27, and I decided to watch 1977's The Sentinel, brought to us by Scream Factory. Oh, damn good film. I had not seen this since I bought it a few years ago. It's still fresh in my memory since I watched it the first time. It is definitely one of my kind of horror films. This is, I'm not going to compare it to these films, but it has the same, stuff that I look for in films like this. You know, The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, stuff like that. It's got that feeling to it, and those are my personal favorite kind of horror films. It's got a long list. I got my IMDb open here because it's got such a long list of people that I would never remember this. Christina Rains, who plays our main character, Allison. We've got Ava Gardner, Chris Sarandon, John Carradine, Burgess Meredith, Eli Wallach, Christopher Walken, Jerry Orbach, Beverly D'Angelo, Tom Berenger. I mean, just a slew of people in this. The film is about a fashion model who has had a troubled life anyway from childhood to now. She is dating this lawyer, played by Chris Sarandon, and they are, you know, on the verge and off the verge of getting married. She doesn't have it in her head yet that, I mean, she knows she wants to eventually, but this is coming like 3 years off of his wife's suicide. So, and there's some other stuff that goes along with that that you'll find in the film itself that I won't let go with. So like I said, her father dies. She has a lot of bad memories about her father. She's attempted suicide a couple times. She's just a really screwed up person. And she decides she wants to move out from her boyfriend's house or apartment and find her own place to live for a little bit. Kind of find herself, not break up with him, but just kind of give herself some space after her dad died and stuff. So she finds this apartment in this apartment building that seems like too good to be true. And hey, guess what? That is often the case of too good to be true. She moves into this apartment, and she's introduced to quite a few of the tenants in here through different meetings. Burgess Meredith being the first one she meets. He's kind of an eccentric, crazy coot that, you know, loves his cat probably a little too much if we got into it. She runs into a couple lesbians, one played by Beverly D'Angelo, the other I have no idea what her name is. There's just some random people at a party, and upstairs in the apartment in the very top loft is a blind priest, excuse me, who's lived there for forever and ever and ever, and they, you know, he doesn't bother anybody and whatever. Well, there's all this disturbing stuff with her neighbors starts, you know, it just starts to feel weird to her. So she goes to the landlord, or I don't know if you want to call it a landlord, realty agent, whatever she is. She goes to complain, and she's like, no, there's nobody that lives there besides you and the priest. So going to the apartment building, she kind of shows her around, and yeah, there's nothing here. But weird stuff continues to happen. She gets these fainting spells. She has these dreams of her killing herself, of her father. She has still sees these people. She thinks at one point she's killed somebody, and it was, in her mind, it was her father's. So all this bullshit goes on in her head, and she decides to go find the church again. She was Catholic. Now she decides to go back to the church. She sees a a priest and talks to him. Come to find out that priest doesn't work there or whatever. A bunch of stuff happens with that. And then we find ourselves in the last act, and that's where I'm going to stop talking about the film, because it gets really, really interesting, and really, really gets that, adrenaline pumping, that anxiety working, that, that horror feel that we don't get today, that feel like, oh hell yeah. And it's a great ending. I do have to commend them on, there's some dark souls you'll see, creepy things, and I have to commend them for how they go about this. They actually use people with abnormalities. They might have no legs and no arms, and they're scurrying around on the floor, or they might have a facial deformity or something like that. They do a really good job of integrating these into this thing. I mean, I don't want to say these people are creepy, because I don't. It's it's a natural thing, but it's creepy. It really is creepy. But the feel of this film, like I said, Rosemary Baby-ish, very slow burn, very, very slow burn with a lot of creepy shit. That's my definition of a horror film that I want. What do you want to watch? I don't know, something slow and creepy. We got some supernatural going on in here. We got just everything. The mood of the film is played so well by the music in this. It is just, you just don't beat these, 60s and 70s. Anything, from the 20s up to going into the 80s is fantastic in horror. And these films, like I said, 1977, what's wrong with me? Is, the last of the big gems out there. There's hits throughout afterwards, but you just don't see stuff like this anymore, and that's why we go back to the classics. So let's read the front here. There must forever be a guardian at the gates from hell. She was young and beautiful. She was the next. So you'll find out what that means when you crack open the Sentinel. It's one that I very, very highly recommend. These, from this Halloween's showcase that we've done so far, this is, it's a top tier. It really is. I haven't touched on like some of my absolute favorites. I've been staying away from them. I'm still up in the air whether or not I will do a video on my all-time favorite horror film. I probably will. It probably will be like the 32nd day of Halloween or something. I'll throw in my number one as that's actually a good idea. Why didn't I fucking think about that until right here on the film? It's kind of like being in traffic or in the shower. You have your best ideas. So, I'm going to quit saying and get on with my night and let you get on with yours. So until next time, guys, we have a toss-up for next. I have 3 films in a 2-film spot. I really am tossed on which one to do. So I have a little picking out for myself. But anyway, hope you're enjoying Halloween.